Welcome to Disconnecting from the Matrix, where the release is from within. I am your host, Alice Kim, and thank you for joining me for episode 5. Today, we're going to continue on the theme of love that I started in the last episode, and this time specifically on romantic relationships. It's going to be a bit of a rant this time, so thank you in advance for indulging me. Before I start, I'm excited to let you know that the show is now on iTunes. So if you're an iTunes user, you can now search for Disconnecting from the Matrix to listen straight from iTunes, or if you'd like, you can subscribe to the show. In the last episode, I talked about love, what it means from a conventional limiting matrix viewpoint, and what it looks like from an awakened perspective. And I try to point out that the two are very different. In fact, I'm at a point that the world's idea of quote-unquote special love isn't at all different from the meaning of prejudice and discrimination. And I'm not just dogging on conventional love so much, because when it's done with pure intentionality, it truly is a beautiful thing. And as long as we are here living in this story that we've made called The Matrix, that's all we've got for the most part. And it could be a beautiful thing. And all I'm trying to point out is that for so many people out there, this thing that's supposed to be such a beautiful experience, the ability to give love and receive love and experience love together, it's very twisted and misunderstood. And this misunderstanding is what most people think is what love means here in this reality. From the very beginning, I said that this show is about freedom. And love is freedom. Love is a state of being that allows and accepts all things to be exactly as they are. It is unconditional. And I don't see what can be any more freeing than that. So in order to be free, you must be love. And the way to begin this process is to start by being loving. I mean, what else can you do? But the way I see how the concept of love works in the Matrix, put another way, mass consciousness, for the most part can hardly be called loving. Instead, we use love to constrain and imprison and control ourselves and each other, the very people that we say that we love. We love them so much that we need to possess them, to have them only to ourselves and not share with anyone else. And I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing, but here in this discussion, I'm just framing it within the concept of true freedom. Let's take a classic example, marriage, which in my opinion, like religion, is an old energy paradigm. It's a very dense matrix in its own right, whose time is up and needs to be released in order for us to ascend to higher levels of consciousness. So marriage, not a fan. And I'm not saying that all marriages are awful or that you shouldn't get married if that's what you want to do. Who am I to tell you what to do and what not to do? And for one, I'm actually married and have been married for over 11 years so far. And considering I never did want to be married, and even after being married, I'm still not a fan. There's a pretty good story in how that happened, and which I will share at another time. But there are certainly many beautiful, loving marriages and relationships are out there. But I would say, and I think you will agree, that such marriages are the exception and not the norm. And at least here in the US, we're looking at around a steady 50% or so of all marriages ending in divorce. It's been that way for a long time. And I also hear that the rate gets even higher with subsequent marriages. So there's definitely something to be said about that. So yeah, marriage, which is considered the epitome, the ultimate ideal of a loving relationship, it is one of the biggest and strongest lies or stories, same thing, that I consider to be out there. And like all stories, marriage is a mass consciousness belief system that, for the most part, historically started as a strategic alliance or as a tool, a transaction to manipulate and preserve someone's requirements for survival, sex, power, and greed. And you know what? That sounds a lot like religion. Religion can be spiritual, but spirituality itself doesn't depend on or need religion. You can be spiritual and not be religious. And I would go farther and point out that your ability to know yourself, to know your truth, this cannot really be had until you release religion. It's completely unnecessary. And just like that, marriage can be very loving, but love doesn't depend on or need marriage to uphold it. If anything, marriage by law and interpersonal agreement has more to do with restricting and boxing in the free spirit of love one can experience with one another. And I even think that if we as a society no longer bought into the hypnosis of marriage, we would enjoy much happier, more fulfilling, more loving, and more lasting relationships. I know we say this jokingly when we refer to marriage as being shackled in ball and chain, but more often than not, I would say that that's an accurate assessment. Even the term tie the knot seems harmless and even meaningful in certain perspectives, but when you look at what it stands for, from a free point of view, a really free point of view, it's about being bound with one another under supposed unbreakable pledges. And that's the kind of crap that messes you up. Because no one is beholden to anyone, and being beholden to someone else is a surefire way to delay your mastery of yourself. It is to delay knowing your truth. Pledges, oaths, contracts, promises, till death do us part, sickness and health, and all that we are one forever and ever thing, until all it takes is for someone to wake up one morning and decide they want out. That's it. So much for all those promises, none of which ultimately means anything except for the meaning you want to give it depending on the day and depending on how you feel. Most people, or at least the people I know, they get married because they think it's one of those things that a person does when they reach a certain point in their lives. A lot of people think that it's just the normal thing to do. In fact, they think it's the right thing to do. And it's what's usually expected of you from your family, your culture, and society. And speaking of marriage, let's not forget this entire brainwashing, this world domination of buying and presenting a diamond engagement ring for your wife-to-be. In fact, so many women, when they become engaged, the ring is oftentimes the center of all the attention and drama. And as soon as they announce their engagement to their girlfriends, the first thing that all their friends want to see is the fucking diamond ring. The idea of a diamond and its high value, all of which is just nothing but ideas and concepts, because diamonds, like anything else in this world, means nothing until we have somehow been programmed to all believe and agree that this piece of very hardened carbon is actually worth some kind of value. Just like money, actually. Money, what is money? It's just a piece of a linen blended paper that's printed on with some ink, and in and of itself as a material is totally worthless. But we have all decided that we are going to put some kind of value into this piece of paper and use it as a method in which we exchange goods and services for us to live our lives. And these days, people don't even hardly use paper money. We've totally gone digital, and at this point, we're just playing a game, moving numbers around somewhere in cyberspace with no money, nothing tangible exchanged. I mean, paper and coin money itself is already an illusion, but now we've gone beyond to just a bunch of digits we work to earn and then spend to buy stuff. I mean, it's really not that different from a video game, isn't it? So this whole idea of having to acquire and present a diamond engagement ring as a symbol of a promise to marry, where did that come from? And where that actually came from was from one of the most successful marketing ploys used by the diamond monopoly, De Beers. I'm sure most people have heard of this company. They hired an ad agency in 1938 to, quote, create a situation where almost every person pledging marriage feels compelled to acquire a diamond engagement ring, unquote. They wanted to, and this is another quote, they wanted to convince Americans that marriages without diamonds were incomplete. And of course, there's their very famous slogan that appeared in every De Beers ad since the late 40s. And that slogan is, "A diamond is forever." And that slogan, I read somewhere, was voted the #1 slogan of the century by Ad Age in 1999. And here's the part that ties together perfectly what I had earlier mentioned about how we view the value of diamonds and money when they're in fact worth nothing. So this De Beers company were so smart that they created another slogan besides "diamonds are forever." And I remember this slogan being everywhere, and I'm sure this sounds very familiar. One of them went something like, "Isn't 2 months' salary a small price to pay for something that lasts forever?" So now what they've done is they have implanted the idea in people who are planning to be married that you need to not only buy a diamond engagement ring, it also sets the minimum amount of how much money you need to spend on it if your relationship is even worth anything. And that kind of manipulative marketing and advertising, which was absolutely genius of them, hardly anybody thinks for a second about how any of this means anything to them personally, except to blindly follow these false traditions that were cooked up by a diamond company who just wanted to take your money, and people the world over follow it automatically. So you're getting married. So first thing is, oh, where's the ring? Got to save up to buy the ring because I need to spend at least 2 months' salary on that. And if I get a diamond that's worth less than that, then that would then say something about how I value my future wife-to-be and our future marriage. I know a person who, when she was presented with her diamond ring for her engagement, was very disappointed in the fact that it was a tiny diamond. So when she used to wear it around, she used to always be so apologetic about it and saying, oh, this is just a placeholder. I'm getting a bigger one. I had a male friend who enlisted the help of one of his soon-to-be fiancé's girlfriends on trying to find an appropriate ring for her. And she just flat out told him that, well, it needs to be at least 2 carats. It's almost like the more expensive or the bigger the ring, it's going to make this love so much more special. Again, I'm not saying that this is good or bad, or that you shouldn't enjoy a beautiful diamond ring if that's what you choose to have. Life on Earth is supposed to be a sensual experience. That's why we have a body. And diamonds are very sensual to a lot of people, and there is nothing wrong with wanting or wearing diamonds. All I'm attempting to point out is the robotic way in which almost everyone blindly follows this artificial programming without even a moment's thought, thinking they're part of some sacred tradition, when in reality they're just getting suckered into literally buying into a marketing scheme. It's all really just a big joke. And the same thing goes for all the rest of the rituals, like having to wear a white dress and down the list of all the rules that no one bothers to even investigate where they came from, let alone what that even means for them personally, if it even has anything to do with them at all, except to go right ahead and mindlessly follow them because, as they say, that's just the way it's done. And I'm just asking, is that really true? Anyway, I kind of got off on a little tangent here. So back to marriage, this holy grail of love for most. You marry someone, and now there's a law placed on you. There are all kinds of rules of conduct, spoken and unspoken, that you're restricted to as soon as you're married. And just from this part alone makes me wonder, because this union is supposed to be about love, isn't it? And love is unconditional, without boundaries or specialness. And yet, marriage or any kind of a special relationship, it now not only excludes you from loving another, but it forbids you to do that, or at least not in that same, quote, special way. And this special love, a love that's reserved for your spouse, partner, children, family, or anyone you feel is very special to you, it's a big part of what I talked about in the last episode about how this, quote, special love is actually a barrier. It is an obstacle for being able to experience true love, a love without conditions, the love that which you truly are. And this, of course, pretty much applies to anyone in a committed or exclusive relationship. But these rules and regulations and restrictions on love, where does it come from? I mean, why do we want to do that? And when love is supposed to be so freeing, why do we then choose to take the ones that we love and apply all these controls and boundaries to negate their freedom? And for many couples, there's this thick overlay of constant jealousy, resentment, fear, blame, shame, guilt, and anger, either for their own or their partner's inability to follow someone else's ideas of how couples should behave, society's ideas of how we all need to behave now that we are in a loving or an exclusive or special relationship. People talk about doing the right thing or doing the wrong thing, But whose rightness and whose wrongness is that? And what is right and wrong except for just a point of view? A good example of this is I have a friend whom I met a few weeks after her wedding. And she told me, Alice, I saw a really good-looking guy the other day. And now that I'm married, I felt so guilty for thinking that he is attractive. I'm thinking, are you fucking serious? I mean, that is absolutely absurd. And I told her that she needs to check herself in this brainwashing game, which seems to have switched on overnight as soon as she said, I do, and made the pledge, the promise. It has been my observation that there are way more married people around me who are unsatisfied, or if not, just flat out miserable than those who are not. And the ones who are truly, really happy in their marriage or relationship, we all know that those are very few and far between. Not impossible, but just in the scheme of it all, there are much less of them than there are those who are unhappy. Which simply means that by being in this relationship that they thought that would provide them with the love, with the support, with the freedom, they were instead boxed in, stuck, unhappy, of course, and ultimately totally not free. I know, and I'm sure you all know, or maybe you are one of them, couples who despise each other, but they still stay together to save face or to maintain a certain image to the outside world, or because of, again, here comes religion and the shame and sin involved in breaking their holy matrimony that's already gone to hell. There are those who blame it on their children and are staying together only until they say the kids are old enough to leave home. So their rationale is that they say that their children will suffer from a broken home and they don't want that. So now they're sacrificing themselves for their kids. They're being martyrs now, which is nothing to be proud of, by the way. But what they don't realize is that their kids, they are so smart and so sensitive and so perceptive that chances are they already know how much their parents freaking hate each other. And they would probably be much happier to see their parents happy, even if that meant that they are no longer together. And as much as some people would have the rationale of saying that, oh, we don't want to be together, but we're doing it for the kids, another thing that they fail to realize is that these kids have such a good chance of seeing this situation in their life and will end up playing out the same old stories in their own married lives later on because they think that that's the way married life is, that people are supposed to be unhappy. People are supposed to get in fights all the time and be in drama, be angry and resentful of each other. They're going to think that that's a normal thing to do. So I say so much for thinking about your kids, for having to worry about staying together for fear that your kids will suffer from a broken home or dysfunctional family when the home is already broken and they're already suffering right along with you. And meanwhile, everyone involved ends up squandering the joy and happiness they deserve and can enjoy right now, but don't and can't because they have to continue the misery in order to uphold this false belief, this story and identities that are built within this illusion. And these are just a few examples, but really none of this is love. And people get into these relationships because, they were looking for love, because they desired love, and everyone is deserving of love. But for the most part, people end up feeling left out. They feel cheated out, wondering where this love is. Where is this thing that they signed on for so enthusiastically at first? And then as the years go by, you're either split up and gotten together with someone else, or you stay in the same relationship and then make another justification for it, saying, oh, that's just the way it is when you've been married for X amount of time, or when you've been together for such an amount of time. That's just the way it is. No, I say that's not the way it is. Not at all. At least it doesn't have to be. But that's your choice. But most people don't even know that they have that choice. Because that ability to know that you have a choice comes from someone who has woken up and who has become aware. Love, and in this session, the special love between spouses or people in romantic relationships, partnerships. Not much of this can be said to be coming from a truly loving source. The true sense of love is about going beyond. It's about allowing others to be exactly as they are. In fact, that is also the definition of pure compassion. Accepting and allowing others and yourself, everything, to be as they are. You can say love is an expression of compassion, and compassion is also an expression of love. They really go hand in hand. In fact, to me anyway, I have not been able to distinguish the two from one another. Allowing and accepting all things as they are. That also sounds very much like freedom. The question then is, how do we have then more loving relationships that actually help each other to release one another, to free each other? It is about first coming to love and accept yourself, to come into full compassion and love for yourself first. In other words, you need to be in relationship with yourself first. You need to marry yourself first. And by that means that you have released all the controls and all the barriers to love within you, and that you have become love. And from that full and complete sense of the truth of who you are, the fullness of the you that is love, that is the agent and friend of freedom, then you don't even have to go out to seek for this love or to seek for relationships. Because you don't need, first of all, relationships to provide the love for you that a lot of people go to because they feel incomplete in the first place. They go into relationship and they look for love because they feel incomplete within themselves, because they have not come to relationship with themselves first. As soon as you become the love for yourself that you are, then the appropriate relationships and the appropriate types of partners, they're going to flock to you. They're going to be magnetized to you. They will just come and show up at your front door. And the ones that will come to you from your new level of consciousness, they're not going to be like the others. Because if you've had relationships where you weren't getting the love that you wanted, it was because you and your partner both were magnetized to each other because of your level of consciousness, of needing completion with each other. So if you come from a fullness within yourself, then these new partners that will just come to you effortlessly, they will just float into your life. They too will embody the same sense of fullness, the same sense of acceptance, and together you can actually have a truly complete and fulfilling and very, very joyful relationship together. And for those of you who are already in relationship with someone, as soon as you change within yourself, as soon as you release all of these barriers, release all of these obstructions and restrictions upon yourself, then don't say I didn't warn you, but expect to see some changes in your life. And I'm not saying this to scare you, because change doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be painful. But if it is appropriate, your current partner might leave the relationship in response to your consciousness. And if your partner doesn't leave, you might have to leave, simply because this current relationship or just the dynamic between the two of you is no longer congruent with what you have become. So that only makes sense. And if you're unhappy right now, I'm not advising you to just get up and leave your relationship. But as soon as you start to do the work on yourself and start to love and accept yourself, there will be changes. And I'm saying that the dissolution of the relationship is one possibility of the change, which may feel unbearable at first, but it is the only way to be if you want to experience something new. In this case, if you want to experience true love. if you want to actually have communion with somebody and be free together. How amazing is that? But you also have to understand that certain things then obviously must be let go. And that's just part of the process. And if you're not willing to do that, then that just means that you really don't want the love. You really don't want to experience the love that comes with no conditions, the love that comes from freedom. Simple as that. Again, it is your choice. And whatever appears to happen to you in your reality is only just in obedience to the Master's wishes, which is yours. There is no one who should be dearer to you than yourself. There should be no one that comes before you. It is not about being selfish, as some people could tell you. And it has nothing to do with what the world thinks is selfish, and everything to do with being self-full, and everything to do with being free. Only the free can be free. Only the loving can experience love. Only the joyful can experience joy. It's all got to start from within you. So check it out as you begin to inventory some of what's going on inside you and decide that you're going to start to focus inwardly and release all of these restrictions that you've put upon yourself and start to actually love and trust and appreciate yourself more and see what happens. And even if the relationship does fall apart and you split ways, that doesn't mean that's the end of it. Not necessarily. It could mean that the relationship needed to take a break for the time being so that if it is appropriate, that it could come together again to match the level of the love that you are willing to accept for yourself. That it just needed to take a little break in order to regroup, you can say, and to come back to be in a more supporting and whole relationship. That may or may not be the case, but in any case, when change happens, you've got to let them go. Because as always, all things are happening for you in this world and not against you. Why? Because it is always happening as a result of fulfilling the wish of the Creator, which is you. So be the love that you already are. That's what you have always been. Because you are God, and God is love. Again, love is the total and unconditional allowance of all things to be as they are. So love and God and you, they're all the same thing. Or you can say, I am. And by releasing all of that which is untrue for you, and as you undo all the layers that are veiling you from the truth of your I am, and at any given point, you will see that your world is going to change along with you. There is no one that you can blame because they are all your creations, remember? So be the love that you are. Appreciate yourself. Be kind to yourself. Speak kindly of yourself. Be loving to yourself. And the degree to how much you can be that way to yourself will be the degree to how automatically your relationships are going to reflect the true love that transcends this dimension, the true love that is freedom. That's all for today. So thank you for listening, and I will check you next time. To find this episode, go to disconnectmatrix.com/podcast/5. And if you're on iTunes and are enjoying the show, please consider subscribing and also leaving me a favorable review. Because your reviews will help so much in making it easier for others who want and need this material to actually find the show. Please visit disconnectmatrix.com. That's disconnectmatrix.com. There, you'll find all the recordings along with show notes for each episode, as well as ways to share with your network. And please leave a comment and start a conversation. In the website, you'll also find links to join me on social media where we can continue the dialogue. And if you'd like to stay in touch, you can subscribe to my email list. My email is alice@disconnectmatrix.com. I welcome your comments, questions, and any suggestions you have to help this show evolve and grow for the benefit of all awakening beings. In fact, I would love to have you heard on the show. If you'd like to state your questions or comments in your own voice for a chance to be included in upcoming episodes, please record your message starting with your name and location on a voice recording app on your device or computer and send the recording to alice@disconnectmatrix.com. Thanks again for joining me. Until next time.